Welcome back to another episode of Health is Wealth, and thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. And as always, I am beyond grateful and thankful from the bottom of my heart to each and every one of you who is tuning in to today's episode and also tuning in to help support the podcast, as every week I am sharing words and thoughts of hope, inspiration, and motivation, and hopefully brings value into your life today. Just sharing things that I am going through on my own crazy ride that we call life. So thank you once again for being here. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is the whatever it takes mentality. Something I am really thinking a lot about going into 2026. We are just weeks away, and it's just crazy to think how fast the year goes by, All of a sudden we wake up at the end of the year with a new year, and it seems like we've got 12 months, 365 days in front of us. And then like that, it just all goes by, and we realize we're closing out another year to open up a new year. And so for me, and for everybody, right? We tend to have a lot of our what's going on in our minds. We reflect on this past year. We think about what's to change and what's to happen, and our goals and our resolutions and all of that going into the next year. And so again, just thinking a lot about this in my own life and the journeys that I'm on, and and where I'm closing off this year with, and where I am starting off the next year in. And so something I've been thinking about here is having this whatever it takes mentality going into the next year. And for me, there's so many different things that I want to level up in my life. My fitness, my finances, my relationships with my loved ones. There's so many different things in life that I want to level up on. And it's going to take a lot of work, and it's not easy, and it's not going to happen quick. But a lot of times we put barriers in front of us. We would say, hey, I would like to do this, but I can't because of that. We often put these limitations on us. And so it's one of the biggest things that I'm trying to avoid this next year, because it can be very easy, to say certain things out loud. I want this certain goal. I want to work towards a certain thing. I want this certain outcome. But then, as soon as it comes to actually making it happen, we can let a lot of excuses, procrastination, obstacles, doubting, self-beliefs, a lot of things start to get in the way of that. And that's one of the things I want to do my best to avoid next year. I have quite a bit on my plate that I put myself, on my plate for. A lot of things that I want to get done, a lot of things I want to level up to, a lot of things that I'm involved in right now to help me get to that next level. And with so much, it can be very easy to feel overwhelmed. It can be very easy to feel like maybe I bit off more than I chewed. But, there's good reason for a lot of it. I know most times, if we put ourselves in situations that forced us to have either an option A or an option B of there is no option but to figure this out, then a lot of times it's a pressure that we need. It's the, the pressure that we need to figure out something, because we have no choice but to figure it out. And so there are a few things that I've kind of put my back up against the wall, intentionally to put kind of that fire under me, right? To force me to have to figure out a way, because the things that I'm, going down paths on right now, I'm bettering my fitness, I'm learning about real estate, and there's other areas of my life that I want to improve. I'm doing my best to get the most from these situations that I'm putting myself in. And so that again now leads me into going into 2026 to, to lead with a whatever it's going to take me to make this happen kind of mentality. I want to leave no room for any excuses next year, and leave all the room for whatever it's going to take for me to figure it out, get uncomfortable, sacrifice, suffer for a bit, be uncomfortable with how many different things I got going on, and how things are going to play out, and how I'm going to make certain things happen. Because for me, the end results of the things that I want to level up in are so important. They're so worth it that I know if I could just figure out out a way to make them happen, to get to that next step, to get to that next level, then it'll all be worth it, right? But that won't happen if, I just say these things and then going into next year, I just have a bunch of excuses for why I can't do this or why that, couldn't happen or why I don't feel I'm able to do this. It's not going to get me any closer to achieve any of the things that I want. So it's going to be one of the main phrases I really go into 2026 thinking about, and whatever it is that I have to do, I'm going to figure out a way to make it happen, and whatever that's going to take, whether it's going to be sacrificing this, suffering without that for a while, figuring out how to manage all this at once. There's going to be a lot that in 2026, I believe is going to be demanded of me in that. And so the only way I'm going to be able to get through it all is leading with the mentality of whatever it takes to make it happen, And so much of the things that I'm doing right now, paths that I'm going down, it's a lot of stuff that I just hear God calling me to do right now, And I'm not quite sure how all of it's going to play out, how I'm going to make it all happen, how I'm going to figure it all out, to be quite honest with you. But I do know one thing, that I'm going to make it happen and I'm going to figure it out with whatever it takes for me to do so, because a lot of this I feel God is calling me to do. A lot of, leaps of faith God is asking me to step forth on, because I believe God is watching me and helping me and guiding me and hearing me as I telling him, my prayers and thoughts as we speak, that I want to get to those next levels of life. I want to better myself. I want to better the quality of my life for me, for my loved ones. I am getting older and I do see a better future. I see a brighter future, And, there's a lot of areas that I need assistance on. And so I feel God is allowing me and helping me to get down these routes. But I believe it's not without putting in some work, I believe, a lot of what he's asking me to do is knowing that it's going to put me under a lot of pressure. It's going to force me to figure things out. It's going to force me to manage a lot at one time, but it's going to force me to grow. It's going to force me to be better. It's going to force me to figure it out. It's going to force me to have this mentality of whatever it's going to take. I've got so much on my plate at the end of this year going into this next year, but I'm glad and I'm grateful and I'm thankful to God for it, because this is what I'm praying for. I'm asking God to level me up, to bring me up to the next stages in life. And I know with that, I can't just get from step 1 to step 5. And by answering those prayers, I believe God is delivering a lot of opportunities my way and a lot of things at once, and I know through forging myself through all of it, it's what's going to make me to the person, who's going to be able to figure out that next level, that next step, that next phase in life that I'm trying to climb up to. So you just have to remind yourself, sometimes you just have to have and lead with that mentality of telling your brain and your mind that I'm going to do this and I'm going to do whatever it takes. Because especially when it's things that are worth it, when it's things that have the ability to change you, your life, and those around you, we have to have that mentality. There's so many things that I am going down the path of right now that I know if I can lead with this mentality of whatever it takes to figure it out, to make it happen, to get it done, I know these things as a result of them, as an outcome, as the return of investment of all the time, effort, emotions, everything I'm going to be going through to get to the other side of it. I know it's going to better the life of myself and my loved ones 10 times more, than whatever it is I'm going to have to put myself through to figure it out and make it happen. Again, there's a lot on my plate going into this next year. And, the only way I'm going to be able to figure it out is to be like, hey, whatever it's going to take for me to do that, whether that means giving up my weekends, whether it means not seeing people and hanging out, whether it means giving up certain things I enjoy doing as for fun on the side right now and disappearing away from that for a while until I'm ready and available to do those things. Like my mind going into 2026 is I've got to make this the year that I really take some big steps and big leaps towards a direction of life that I want to go, and levels of life that I know is possible for me and my loved ones, and who I know I can become. And I need to make next year that big giant leap towards that life. And it's not going to come by just giving up all of this, or when things get too hard on the new things that I'm venturing down, or coming up with excuses with why it can't happen, or why it's too much, or why it's too hard and all that. It's never going to come from that. But if I can go into it in 2026 with a whatever it's going to take mentality, then I know I'll be able to figure out the things that I'm going to figure out, And I think if we all lead with that, and we all go in, especially into this next year with that, we'll be surprised what we're capable of when we get our brains to think that way. Because most times I think what happens is we have good intentions of good outcomes and good paths that we want to go down, because we want to better ourselves, better our loved ones, better our life quality, all these different things. But then it starts to get too hard, it starts to get a little stressful, frustrating. It feels like we can't do it, whatever it may be, things that just get in the way, that stop us. And then we start to train our brain to be like, we can't figure it out. There's no way out of this. It's impossible. It's too hard. That's in the way from us, preventing us to do this thing. And I think the more times we tell our brain and have these conversations within our own mind, the more we play that same, thing over and over again. And anytime we try to do something new that can improve us, the quality of our life for us or our loved ones, then the more times we do that, the more time our brain recognizes that things are just too hard. And so we just give up when they are too hard, or something's not going our way. And then that begins to become the song and tune of the show. It's every time we go down something that's too hard, we're like, oh, I can't do it, or go again, and then vice versa. We're just on the cycle. But I think if we constantly lead with a whatever it takes mentality, and push against that resistance of wanting to quit and wanting to stop because it's too hard, it's too frustrating, we're getting overwhelmed, and then we can actually make it happen, then I believe we start taking our mindset up another level by realizing that we are capable of these things and we can figure it out, even when most times we can't figure it out, because a lot of times we can't beforehand. But if we give ourselves no way out and no other option but to make it happen, I think we surprise ourselves most of the time with what we can figure out and make happen, if that is the only option, that this has to work, that there is no option for it not to work. It has to. And the more times I believe we trick our brain into seeing that, then the more times it realizes, hey, we've done this, this dancing show before. We can do it again. Like, we said we couldn't figure it out last time, but we said, hey, whatever it takes. And we did whatever it took, and we got it figured out. So always lead with a whatever it takes mindset, especially going into the new year. And for me, once again, especially, that's where I'm going to. I've got a lot of exciting things that I'm starting going into this next year. Again, I just hired a coach to help me with my nutrition and my fitness. I got into some mentoring with some real estate to learn development. I'm working so many different angles of my life right now. And there's a lot that I'm putting on my plate, and I've got more coming on my plate at the beginning of this next year. But I know for me, I cannot go into the year not having whatever it's going to take for me to figure out certain things, to make certain things happen, to get certain things done. Because at the end of the day, this is going to improve the quality of my life and my loved ones, now and in the future, and even generational, And so when I start to think of all the things at play, I've got no choice but to make things work. And the only way they will work is by leaving that mentality and nothing else there to be like, okay, whatever I got to do to get it done. So I know next year, again, it's going to be me balancing a lot of, multiple things at once and trying to figure out different levels and angles of different areas of my life that I'm trying to level up. And it'll be very easy to start giving up on things and getting too frustrated and stop that and stop this because that's too much and I got too much going on here. but I know all the things that I'm getting into are ultimately things that down the line are going to improve the quality of my life. And so my mentality all of 2026 is whatever it is that I got to do to make these things happen, it's going to happen. I want to keep fighting myself and fighting against myself to continue leading down that path with that mindset. So I don't give myself an out or an excuse or, I can't do this because, people who win in life, people who become successful in life are truly just people who never gave up, even if they failed, even when it got too hard, even if it got too frustrating or overwhelming or whatever it may be. People who succeed and win in life are just those who never gave up, who said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win and make this happen. So as we start closing out on the end of the year, going into 2026, I invite you all to join me with this mentality of whatever we got to do, let's make it happen in 2026. Us improving our fitness, our finance, our faith, our family, our relationships in life, the quality of our life, who we are as a person to that next best version of ourselves, whatever goal it may be, whatever path in life that we want to go down, whatever that success looks like for us. I invite us all to go in with a whatever it takes mentality, because I believe if we could start there, we could end there, we can get a lot more done, on our list of things that are required to get to that next level, right? To that next stage in life. Because when we have that whatever it takes mentality and mindset, I think it just leaves us no option with the only option of figuring it out. Most times we like safety nets. We like a plan B. We like an exit strategy because it's safe. If this goes wrong or that doesn't go my way or this gets too bad, I can jump ship and that's okay, But my mentality next year is I'm going down with the ship one way or another because I've got to figure this thing out. I've got to make all these different things in my life, happen, because it's not just about me. It's about my loved ones. It's about people around me, the things that I'm willing to do and not willing to do, as far as things I give up on or don't, everything, is just going to affect the livelihood, it's going to impact not just me, but other people around me. And with the many different levels of success I want to get to in life, if I give myself any excuse, any outs, any exits, I can't do this because it's too hard, I'm not just giving up on myself. I'm giving up on people around me who I care about, who deserve a better life, who deserve a better future, who deserve, better things in life and into the future. And again, generationally and all of that. So again, let's close out this year strong. Let's start the year off even stronger. Let's go into it with a whatever it takes mentality. I believe you can do it. I believe I can do it. I believe we can do it together if we just have that mentality, especially in 2026, that's just around the corner, leaving ourselves with no other option but what, to make the things happen that we want to happen. And, let's see how that transforms our life at the end of the year, of next year, if we give ourselves no other option but the only option in whatever goal, resolution, path that you're down, that you want to succeed in, saying this has to get figured out and I'm going to do whatever it takes to absolutely make it happen. Thank you once again for tuning in to another episode. And as always, we will see you on the next one.